Welcome to Wise Up Governance and Boards podcast, brought to you by 3 Wise Owls Governance Consultants, covering hot topics in governance, risk, latest regulatory changes, and issues keeping directors and executives awake at night. Here are your hosts, Ainslie Cunningham and Deb Anderson.
Welcome to today's Wise Up Governance and Boards podcast. Today we are joined by Taj Pabari. Taj is one of Australia's youngest and most successful social entrepreneurs. At the age of 11, Taj started his first business, a tech blog for kids, by kids, for kids. In 2014, the website was acquired by an international manufacturing firm for a small fee. At the age of 14, Taj founded Fifysix Creations, using the funds he raised from the tech blog alongside investment from Sydney impact investor Steve McDonald. The social enterprise delivers entrepreneurship and financial literacy programs for young people. As of 1 April 2020, Fifysix Creations has educated more than 60,000 students from across Australia and New Zealand. Taj's work and story has been featured on Sunrise, 60 Minutes, The Today Show, National Geographic, ABC, Nickelodeon and CNBC, and now Wise Up Governance and Boards. Accolades collected by Taj and Fifysix Creations include being named the 2017 Young Australian of the Year for Queensland, the Australian Young Innovator of the Year, and winner of Westpac's Top 20 Businesses of Tomorrow. Welcome, Taj.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit about Fifysix Creations.
Yeah, absolutely. So Fiftysix started when I was 14 years old. I was a very disengaged young person in school. I didn't enjoy being there, didn't see the point in why I was sitting there. And for me, I just wanted a life outside of the classroom. I wanted to kind of just explore the world around me. I was fascinated by technology. I was fascinated by kind of just the digital economy in general, and thought, all right, well, like if this is kind of if this is the thing I want to do when I grow up, I might as well just start now. And started Fiftysix Creations when I was 14, and we've kind of transitioned to an education social enterprise delivering business and entrepreneurship programs to solve youth unemployment. So actually getting young people in regional communities to start their very own business or social enterprise to solve a community problem. And at the end of it, they're actually learning some really amazing skills, things like communication, collaboration, creativity, skills that we think are really quite important for success in the digital economy, especially for some of these regional kids as well. So, yeah, I've got the best job in the world.
Sounds like it, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do with the Indigenous youth community.
Yeah, no, definitely. So kind of from the start at Fifysix Creations, we were kind of like, all right, well, like the skills that we're teaching are pretty much for everyone. They're for every young person, regardless of age, gender or postcode. Equally, some of these skills can be incredibly valuable for, say, some of those more disadvantaged students where they might be in the poverty trap. They might not necessarily have access to a really world-class education. And the idea was, well, let's name the organisation Fifysix Creations. And in numerology, the numbers 5 and 6 means opportunity. And we thought we're going to give every single young person, regardless if they can afford it or not, the opportunity to have entrepreneurial education. And that kind of started, well, like we could work with kids in India and Africa, etc. But closer to home, we've got some incredible young people who are in some really disadvantaged situations. Closer to home in Queensland, up in Cape York, you've got kids who are incredibly bright, but quite simply have not had the opportunity to kind of just explore the world of entrepreneurship. We decided from a pretty early stage within the organisation that we wanted to have a strong social purpose, and the idea of youth unemployment for regional communities and getting them out of the poverty trap was actually something quite practical and something quite realistic. And getting young people who were still in school, primary school, even starting their own business, to contribute back to their economy was actually quite feasible. And yeah, over the last 6 years, we've now had the opportunity to work with over 60,000 young people, most of them in Australia, and we've also had some presence in New Zealand and Singapore as well.
I was watching your TEDx talk last night, and the experience that you had going on an Anthony Robbins course. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like Gosh, I did that TEDx talk. I think that was the UQ one where I spoke about Tony Robbins, and I think I was 16 at the time, and they were like, "Do you want to do this TEDx talk?" And I was just like I used to watch a lot of TEDx talks. To be honest, I still do, and thought, all right, let me just quickly do this one. And it was a very quick 5 to 7 minute talk. And every time I watch it, I can't seem to delete this talk anymore. But it's out there forever, right? So it was a good learning opportunity for me. But no, certainly, I've been a massive follower of Tony Robbins since I was 14. My parents took me to one of his seminars when I was quite young, and I'd always been quite interested in business because I started my first tech blog when I was 11, as you said at the start. It was a really cool experience because that was in my peak hatred of school. I was on 3 suspensions at that time. I was about to be expelled from school during that period. And the whole idea of an electronic blog, kind of doing something outside of the classroom, was the one thing that engaged me back into traditional education. And mum and dad were just like, hey, well, we want to take you to a Tony Robbins seminar, and thought, all right, well, 3 days off school for me was just incredible because I hated being there. I honestly hated it. So 3 days being able to go to Sydney, stay at a hotel and kind of not be in the classroom was anything will go. So I said yes. And had the most amazing 3 days, set some really amazing goals, did a visualization board, kind of just set my goals for what I wanted to achieve in life. And that was not something I ever did in school. It was not something we ever had the opportunity to do in school. It was never something we were taught about in school. And I think just the whole principal idea of setting aspirations for one's life was something that really hooked me into his teachings. And have been a massive follower of his thereout. Had the opportunity to meet him in New York a couple of years ago, which was a really chance encounter in a film studio, and got the opportunity to say thank you. So, no, massive fan of him.
And how was the fire walking?
Loved it. I was literally 14. I was the only 14-year-old in that seminar. Mum and dad were massive. They've been massive advocates of his work, and kind of were like, hey, this UPW seminar's in Sydney where it's around your birthday, so they kind of spun it as a birthday gift as well. And he kind of puts you in the state that you don't feel it. You walk across burning hot coal without feeling a thing. And to me, that sort of kind of the theory behind that really fascinated me. And still to this day fascinates me, and something that I think I was very lucky to be able to kind of engage in a seminar like that from the age of 14. It's certainly when I have kids, whether it's his kids, whether it's his associates, I will certainly be sending them to one of his seminars because it certainly changed my life.
So, in relation to the micro MBAs, Taj, do you find they've become quite popular with the kids, and how do they sort of interact with those, and what do you sort of see the benefits of for children off the back of that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, kind of we think of ourselves as a kind of a holistic education provider. We teach entrepreneurship, but the skills they're learning from entrepreneurial skills are massive, right? Entrepreneurial skills are people skills. They're things like communication. You don't just have to, by practicing communication, that doesn't just set you up for a career pathway down business and entrepreneurship. That's a career through every single background. Whatever you want to do when you grow up, you're going to have to learn about communication. You're going to need to learn how to negotiate with other people. You're going to need to understand fundamental collaboration and teamwork skills. And we kind of thought, well, kids in itself, if you go to a child and say, hey, we're going to be doing public speaking camp, the answer in more times than not is no. I don't want to learn about public speaking. I don't want to go to public speaking camp. I, for one, was one of those kids. I didn't want to go to public speaking camp because that's just weird and I didn't want to do it.
My kids are the same.
Yeah, it's not cool, right? Who wants to learn about public speaking during a school holiday? Certainly not me, and certainly not most of the kids that we've worked with. But the idea of who wants to start a business, who wants to change the world, they don't even know how to start a business or change the world. But the idea is great, I don't really know how, but sounds good. I'll give it a go. And when they're actually starting a business, you can't really start a business without communicating your ideas to another person. Therefore, they're practicing communication skills. You can't start a business without the support of other people, team members, co-founders, that sort of thing. And therefore, they need to find a team, grow a team, incentivize other people to come work for them. And we kind of realized, entrepreneurship is a great way of teaching transferable life skills. And instead of trying to get kids to persuade them to learn about public speaking, just get them to start a business, because ultimately, if they want to succeed down a pathway in business, they're going to need to know how to communicate. They're going to find a way to push out of their comfort zones. And there's obviously some very negative elements of peer pressure, but when you put a group of 30 people who all want to start a business together, most of them are going to learn about communication skills. Most of them are going to find a way to work in a group setting. Most of them are going to find a way to be creative. And I think that's kind of the positive side to peer pressure, because they kind of push each other to learn some really amazing skills.
It's a chance for a plug. What are some of those successful businesses that have been built, Taj?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year we had the opportunity to deliver a program for the state government called the Minister's Climate Challenge, where it was a challenge open to all Queensland students, grade 3 to grade 12, I think. Kids had to identify a climate problem within the Queensland ecosystem and brainstorm a solution. We visited thousands of young people all across the state, from Cape York to the Gold Coast. It was incredible, where we got the opportunity to literally hear kids. What are some of your problems? And hey, well, this is a platform for you to pitch them. And winners of that challenge actually got to pitch their ideas to the former US Vice President Al Gore, as well as the Minister for Environment, Leanne Enoch, here in Brisbane. So we brought together like 15 kids from all across Queensland, some of the most brightest minds, to pitch their climate solutions to a former US Vice President who's obviously made a very clear statement he wants to invest into young people coming up with climate solutions. And we had these really amazing kids. We had George and Carter, the co-founders of EPAC. They're based in Curran in Queensland. They go to school at Curran State School. And they had this idea for a sustainable tourism pack, which included your reusable cutlery, reusable straw, the metal straws, plates that kind of were biodegradable, bamboo bowls, that sort of thing. It was just it was incredible. It was a very sustainable tourism pack, and it cost $40. These guys were like 9 years old, and they pitched their idea to Al Gore. Anyway, one of the other judges was the director of the 2040 movie, Damon Gameau. The kids ended up getting $10,000 of pre-orders that night. They ended up getting a commercial filmed by Damon Gameau. They're about to raise another $25,000. They're just an incredible bunch of kids. Their idea was, we want to create sustainable tourism. And not only have they actually created that product, they've got $10,000 of pre-orders and a television ad that's been completely clipped and created by someone who's actually directed quite an incredible film. And we thought, for a bunch of 9-year-olds living in a regional community, this is pretty incredible. And we've kind of got young people just like George and Carter from not just Queensland, but across the country, who are just coming up with problems and identifying solutions, and along the way generating pre-orders, meeting cool people who are creating ads for them. And it's incredible because they're learning some really amazing skills. They're building their network, and ultimately creating a better world for us all. So no, it's exciting stuff.
What a fantastic experience for these kids. So
absolutely.
What are your thoughts on code that's being taught in the schools, Taj?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's something that it is a media statement that a couple of politicians put out a few years ago. You had people like Bill Gates from Microsoft. You had a lot of the tech CEOs saying, well, coding is the new global language. The only reason they want it as a global language is if we have lots of coders, the cost of hiring coders will inevitably go down. To me, it's a basic economic argument. You train every single young person how to code, the price of hiring computer programmers is going to go down. It's a fact. This is not a conspiracy. It's a basic fact. And when you train every single Queensland student in particular how to code, these people are going to be the next blue-collar workers of the future. And I think it's incredibly disappointing that Queensland, an innovative state that we've tried to mold ourselves into, is saying that coding is a new global language. Because right now, we do have enough coders. Sure, they're paid high right now, but in 10 years' time, when we've got every single kid in India, every single kid in China learning how to code, a Queensland coder is going to be effectively useless. And if they are still around, they're going to be paid very little. So that's my views on coding. Other people have very differing opinions on coding. But my opinion is purely based on research. So we can differ on opinions, but research doesn't lie.
Mine's based on having to help with homework. So I'm all for it not being taught. But anyway, it's all good.
Yeah. Look, the good computer programmers, and probably the more exceptional computer programmers, will find success. I just feel that training every single kid to code is a waste of time. Because if you're the best in your industry, in every industry, whether it's if it's an already automated industry, the elite ones will always be successful, and that's completely okay. But to train a generation of computer programmers probably isn't the right thing.
So Taj, you wrote an article called "A War on Smartphones in Schools," which ultimately, I believe, led to you being invited to join a task force on cyberbullying.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on cyberbullying, and how do we reduce it? We can't eliminate it, but how do we reduce it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of the Premier put out the feelers after Amy Dolly Everett committed suicide in a boarding school in Queensland, a Queensland student, and her story obviously struck a chord across the state. It certainly struck a chord with our Premier, and full credit to her. She acted decisively straight away and said, all right, well, like cyberbullying is obviously not just a Queensland problem. It's certainly not an Australian problem, but we want to be part of the major solution here in Queensland. And she kind of put together a task force, the anti-cyberbullying task force, and said, hey, well, what can we do to combat cyberbullying, and how do we make sure that we don't have stories like Amy Dolly Everett coming up into the future? And kind of some of the media statements, once again, politicians have very frequently called for a ban on smartphones. That, well, if you want to stop cyberbullying, then ban the smartphone. And on paper, that sounds really attractive. Like, well, if you don't have smartphones in the classroom, well, cyberbullying won't happen. But the core issue behind cyberbullying is people cyberbullying in the classroom. They're normal bullying in the classroom, which is very easy for a teacher to step in and say, I can hear the comments you're saying. Do you need to stop these comments? The problems start arising when the kids are at home. They're in their bed. They've got their phones. It's very late at night. The kids have their phones. Parents are asleep, or parents in their room working. Cyberbullying happens outside of the classroom, and the idea of banning a smartphone in the classroom is not solving cyberbullying. In fact, it's really delaying it when teachers can't interfere, parents don't know about it, and that's kind of the view that we took. I only was in school a few years ago, and as someone who was very close to people who had been bullied, or even in some senses had bullied other people, the idea of some of these off-the-shelf solutions, such as ban the smartphone and you'll stop cyberbullying, were things that people actually were seriously considering, when really there was no research that suggested banning smartphones were practical. And from an anecdotal point of view, I was in school. I knew smartphones weren't the problem, because you ban a smartphone, they've still got their computers, they've still got their iPads, and they can still do it as much damage on their smartphone, on their computers or their iPads as they can on a smartphone. So it was an incredible task force. We made several suggestions to solve cyberbullying in Queensland. One of the ones that I was quite happy with was this idea of providing youth grants. So young people can apply for up to $3,000 to come up with their own cyberbullying social change campaign in their local school. So if a young person, literally a grade 6 or a grade 12 student, has an idea to solve cyberbullying, they can apply to the state government for $3,000 to come up with an event, social change movement, ads, whatever it might be, super open to solve cyberbullying. And it's, rather than having kind of a more overarching TV ad saying don't cyberbully, which like everyone gets the idea of don't cyberbully, but actually young people solving their own solutions, coming up with two problems that they face on a day-to-day basis, to me is the best way of solving a problem. That's the Queensland government understood that, and they put, I think it was about $1 million towards youth grants to get young people solving cyberbullying within their own communities. within kind of that was just one of the many recommendations. So look, I was incredibly honoured to be part of that task force. This youth grants program was certainly one of the ones I was pushing for, and they funded it. So no, it was incredible. But banning smartphones, once again, similar to coding, looks great in media, but isn't overly practical and isn't very thought out, in my opinion.
And your Lego story, Taj, tell us about that.
So after starting the tech blog, I kind of thought, all right, well, like, I really want the idea of a do-it-yourself tablet for kids. Like, I love technology. I love writing about electronics. On weekends, when my sister would be going to, like, sewing classes or co-curriculars or whatnot, my dream weekend was mum and dad dropping me to JB Hi-Fi or Harvey Norman, spending like 4 hours there, taking pictures of all the electronics using dad's Canon camera, and like literally spending a few hours there just to play with electronics. That was my dream weekend. That was a hobby. I loved it. And kind of out of that Tony Robbins seminar, for me, it was, well, a tech blog probably isn't going to change the world, but hey, instead of just writing about electronics, why don't I start my own? And had this idea for do-it-yourself tablet for kids, as easy as a puzzle, as fun as a computer game was the tagline, where kids could literally clip in the different pieces for their own Android tablet. And at the end, it was just like a puzzle. It would turn on and they could use it for school. I created a prototype really easily using school's 3D printers, ordered off-the-shelf components, and the prototype was incredible. Like, it was literally like a puzzle. They could clip in the camera, they could clip in the screen, they could clip in the motherboard, and started pitching it to a heap of different places. Media loved it. They were just like, there's this Indian nerdy kid pitching this do-it-yourself tablet. They wanted me on all of their news outlets, so from Sunrise to the Today Show to 60 Minutes. Everyone wanted me on their shows, which was amazing. The issue was we only had one prototype. So every single time a new media outlet kind of said, hey, like, do you want to hop onto the show? I was yeah, the answer was always yes. But they also realized that this device didn't look as good as kind of they needed it to look for media. So they started creating their own iterations of the device and what they wanted it to look like. So like, I showed them what it would look like. They took a photo of what it would look like, and then they'd create their own graphic of what they thought it was going to look like. So it looked like this Apple-like device, which was like beautiful. And we ended up selling like thousands of units, like, of a device that really never existed. We sold, like literally thousands of devices of pre-orders. Because the idea of a do-it-yourself tablet was cool. I built it. I was the target market. I was 14 and thought, I want to do-it-yourself tablet. Like, who wouldn't want to do-it-yourself tablet? And had this concept. 2 years passed. We made very little meaningful progress. And a parent had ordered this tablet kit for their child's 16th birthday. The child had turned 18 years old, left school, moved out of home, and they'd still not received their tablet kit. And for some people, we're taking like pre-orders anywhere between 5% all the way to 100%. Yeah. So we turned into a business that was trying to deliver devices that were 2 years old. Anyway, long story short, 2 years later, we realized this is not a good business. It's taken us 2 years to kind of create a prototype that is now 2 years old. Hardware is difficult, and if we're going to do hardware again, we would raise a huge amount of money. So we would raise $20, $30, $40 million before starting the business, rather than taking a few thousand pre-orders and then trying to deliver on it. And thought, all right, well, the hardest part of starting a business is in my opinion, the hardest part of starting a business is actually selling a product. You can create a product that no one wants, but can you create a product that people want and have actually pre-ordered 2 years ago and still aren't complaining? That's how much they wanted this product. And the answer for us was, well, that probably is the hardest part of starting a business, creating a product that has so much demand that people don't mind waiting 2 years for it. Our problem was we couldn't actually generate the product that they waited 2 years for. And thought, well, we've got an incredible amount of momentum here. How about we just teach other kids how to do the exact same thing? We can teach other kids how to start their own business. We don't feel qualified teaching kids how to execute on their business ideas because we had no idea how to execute on the idea, but we can teach kids how to start them. And we started going around schools, teaching young people how to start their own business, start their own product, start their own service, just like I started this tablet business. And that's kind of what led us into Fiftysix Creations, where we go into schools and teach kids how to start their own business. And now we also teach kids how to execute on their business and actually get them to commercialize and actually deliver on the products that they sell. So, yeah, that's how we kind of transitioned from this do-it-yourself tablet, which was an amazing concept, but it was probably just too futuristic at that time.
What's next for Fiftysix Creations?
Yeah, cool. So, look, Fiftysix Creations right now is an incredible social enterprise. I've been with the organisation now 6 years. I feel every 6 years people need a change, and I think I'm probably at the stage where I need a new little project. So over the next few months, my time at Fiftysix Creations will be fading out. It'll be an exciting new project. It's certainly not something that it's been something that I've wanted to do for quite a while. 56 Creations, we will still be there. The organisation is at the stage where it's very self-reliant. We've got the goal of educating 100,000 kids by 2025. We're 60,000 kids in. We've got some amazing partnerships with government, corporates, and that's something that I think is really exciting. But every 6 years you need new leadership. Every 6 years you need a new change. And I think I started when I was 14. I'm 20 years old now. There's only so much you can do in an organization in 6 years. And I'm young. I think I need a new challenge, and I'm ready for that new challenge. So, look, I'll be sharing what I do over the next 4 or 5 months. I've got 4 or 5 months with Fiftysix, and then kind of look at, well, when do I share this new organization? So, look, Fiftysix has provided me with an amazing opportunity. I've loved what I've done with Fiftysix. It's in good hands with the team it is with right now. But I think, 6 years for me is the time where you've got to move on. I think if you look at a presidential term in the US, they kind of limit it to 2 terms. Halfway through the second term for a US president, you kind of read some of the anecdotal evidence of who's actually running the country, and more times than not, it's the people around the president, the chief of staff, it's the senior advisors that are really making the decisions for the president in the last 2 years of a presidential term. And for me, that kind of struck a chord and said, well, after 6 years, if they can't run a country after 6 years, then for me, it's probably the right time to say, to give it to new leadership.
Well, that's very exciting. We can't wait to hear what your news is, Taj, soon.
We'll follow your journey, which
Absolutely.
we know will be incredibly successful in whatever you do.
And so
Thank you.
with age diversity then on boards like ASX-listed boards or even advisory boards, what are your thoughts being a young person and the challenges you face for age diversity on boards?
Yeah, look, I think that's what, when I spoke at that Governance Institute national conference the other year, that was certainly something that was discussed quite a lot. I fundamentally believe that not every single person on a board should be a young person, but I believe that if young people are going to be inheriting a lot of these companies, then in turn we should have some form of representation either on the board of directors or on the advisory board. To me, that provides people talk, hey, we need gender diversity, we need color diversity, etc. But quite fundamentally, we're going to be inheriting these companies. They're going to be creating products for us. We're going to be sitting on these boards at some point. So why not put us on these boards originally? Governments are doing incredibly well. Us on a number of government boards, and it's not just me. It's lots of government is realizing the power of putting young people who are going to be inheriting the country of the future, of putting young people on boards. And I think that's something that, although governments usually quite slow to react to some of the more innovative trends, and that's something that the Australian government and the state governments have done really well to do. Corporates are lagging behind when it comes to that. And it's certainly something that I would love to see kind of picked up a lot more because intuitively it makes sense. If you're going to put someone who's a different colour to you on a board, if you're going to put someone who's a different gender to you on a board in the name of diversity, then in turn you've got to put someone who's kind of got a different perception of life to you as well. So look, that's the goal. I think to me it makes sense. It certainly would be in the interest of, say, some of the banks in particular. But who knows? That's a long-term vision. Governments are doing it. I'm glad governments are doing it, and I'm just corporates to follow suit.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's nearing our time, all we have time for today for our episode, Taj. But thank you so much for joining us and your amazing insights and just hearing about the journey for Fifysix Creations and your ongoing journey from here. We're very excited to hear about that. So we'll be following you closely. So,
And all the best.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Taj.
Easy. Catch you later.
Thank you. And thank you to all our listeners today for another episode of Wise Up.
That's all for today. Until next time, happy podcasting. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, check out our other episodes and all things governance at www.3wiseowls.com.au.